been operating for 26 years, and it's hard to imagine the popular spot closing down. But it may happen if the current design plans for the Hexham Bridge go ahead. The new road does not go near the Oak and gives motorists very little chance to turn off for a bite to eat. Negotiations are continuing with the DMR, but it appears the writing is on the wall.
From the information we have at the present time, the new road system associated with the bridge will obscure us from the main flow of traffic.
When will you make your final decision?
Well, at this stage we don't really know until such time as the DMR give us the final plans.
The Oak Milk Bar at Hexham has almost become an institution for the travelling public, serving up some of the best milkshakes in town. But while it may close, authorities have already started looking at other sites.
We're looking at one at Raymond Terrace, we're looking at a site at Charlestown. We already have established a new one at the Marketplace at Muswellbrook, and there's one being built in a shopping complex at Liverpool at the present time. We're certainly not going to let go too easily.
After 2 excellent days, Singleton Show officials were expecting record attendances for today's final session, but expectations collapsed when rain clouds moved over the showground this morning. Despite the drenching rain, the show proceeded. In fact, the only 2 events cancelled were the parachuting display and a motorcycle stunt team's performance. Despite the poor crowd, organisers were philosophical. They agreed the rain would benefit many more people on the land than the show would. The show did prove that people still want to attend the traditional style country show, and now organisers are looking to 1983 for a record-breaking performance. Perhaps the highlight of the day was judging of the Singleton Showgirl Quest by NBN's Des Hart. The winner of that event was 19 years old Leonie Worth.
That canon was rejected. Interesting, it was voted upon in 2 houses, the House of Laity and the House of Clergy. It was accepted in the House of Laity, but rejected in the House of Clergy. But when you put the 2 votes together, there was scarcely a vote separating them, so it was something like 50-50. That was the main domestic area. In the social welfare and concern, unemployment, work, housing, the relationship between the university and the CAE, Aboriginal land rights, areas of that sort of discussion was had.
One controversial area mentioned was asking the federal government for protection for the steel industry. To what extent can that request be carried to the government?
I think we'll just let our voice be heard.
The 9-race program set down at Broadmeadow tomorrow will go ahead, according to the Newcastle Jockey Club, which made its decision today. However, the dispute could erupt into a confrontation now that the Jockey Club has taken a stand. It says it will take appropriate action against the 12 AWU members unless they return to work tomorrow morning. Track hands and barrier attenders have been on strike since the beginning of October. Their dispute with trainers is unresolved, and this could affect tomorrow's program.
The team has been experimenting with live flu vaccine for the past 4 years. The initial testing was carried out on animals, but the team has now reached the stage where it is administering the vaccine to human volunteers. The Newcastle School of Medicine is considered to be the Australian headquarters for influenza research. The NewMed complex, which is attached to the Royal Newcastle Hospital, is the only centre in the country where live vaccine is being tested. Heading the research team is Dr. Greg Tannock, a senior lecturer in microbiology. Dr. Tannock says the only real hope of curbing influenza lies with the live vaccine.
This vaccine is administered in the form of nose drops, and the idea is to emulate Mother Nature, but in a much more attenuated way. The vaccine is given to a person who lies down and receives the drops, and the vaccine is designed to produce at worst a mild rhinitis.
Now, you're using human beings to test the live vaccine. Are you putting them in any sort of danger?
These trials are subject to very strict ethical control by both the University and the Commonwealth Department of Health.
How much longer do you expect it to be before we see the live vaccine on the market?
I would think between 5 and 10 years, realistically.
The aim of the new course is to provide a group of adult women with the practical skills necessary to compete as sales representatives. Development of the program was linked to labour market research, which showed a heavy demand for highly trained salespeople. The first class of 8 women was enrolled today. Over the next 2 months, they'll be taught the many aspects of selling, from personal development through legal considerations to communication. It's being conducted in cooperation with the Hunter Development Board and the Technical College. According to organiser Kathy Sharp, the course will give its participants a good chance to compete equally in a traditionally male-dominated profession.
We hope so. As I said, we've had a lot of contact with employers, and although they're not guaranteeing jobs at the end, they're more or less saying we want good salespeople. We've had an input into this course, and we'll be very happy with looking at the products at the end of it. And also, these women are very confident and very competent women, and I'm sure they can handle their own in the traditional male area.
Four-year-old Eliza Jane Shoemaker was stuck in the drain for more than an hour. She'd been making mud pies in the backyard of her parents' Gateshead home when the grate she was standing on gave way and her foot became lodged in the pipe. The police rescue squad was called in to lend a helping hand. After a few tears and the twist of an ankle, Eliza Jane was freed, much to the relief of her parents. So, after handing the policemen back their hats, it was a kiss for each of her rescuers. Understandably, Eliza Jane was a little reluctant to talk about her experience. Mr. Bernie Geraghty ended his career today after more than 40 years in the public service. He worked with the Hospitals Commission and founded its regional office in Newcastle before becoming Deputy Regional Director for the new Health Commission. Mr. Geraghty was appointed to the post of Regional Director in 1975 and held that position until today. For the last 7 months he's been working on Health Commission projects in Sydney. During his career, Mr. Geraghty was instrumental in the establishment of the Regional School of Nursing in the Hunter. Mr. Geraghty also helped establish this Faculty of Medicine at Newcastle University. but his retirement comes at a time of trepidation for the Health Commission here in Newcastle, following the latest Olsen reports. The chairman of the Health Commission, Dr. McEwen, says the position will be advertised and filled as quickly as possible. Today the group inspected Stockton Hospital and held talks with management and staff. The committee consists of Mr. David Richmond from the Public Service Board, Professor Maurice Sansbury, Director of the New South Wales Institute of Psychiatry, and Mr. Terry Canolti from the State Trades and Labour Council. A number of submissions from various groups in the community have already been put forward, and Committee Chairman Mr. Richmond says the complete report should be ready for the Minister by the end of the year.
Well, the basic purpose is to enable the inquiry to get a first-hand impression of what's going on in a major hospital like this, providing services for the developmentally disabled. We're inspecting the wards, seeing what people do, we're talking to management, we're talking to the staff as a group, we're talking to them as individuals, and we're talking to the local unions. So it's part of the process of us gathering as much information and knowledge about the system as we can.
There have been recommendations in other reports for more community-based services. Do you think this is a viable proposition?
Well, there certainly is a strong body of opinion that should happen, and in this particular region there has been a report prepared which in part suggests that should happen here. Some people will say it's desirable to put them in the community, others will say it won't work unless you provide adequate support services. So we first of all got to decide whether it is desirable, then we've got to look at how you provide the necessary level of support.
Tube makers will reduce its staff by a further 80 by mid-November. Already in the past 12 months, 300 jobs have gone here, bringing the present workforce down to only 1,500. The latest 80 to go will be retrenched on the basis of seniority. That is, last on the payroll will be first to leave. Tube makers manufactures a range of steel pipes and tubes and a varied array of fittings. It also has a fabricating division which engages in contracting work, mainly for the mining and power industries. Both sections of the works will be affected by the latest retrenchments. A spokesman for the works said the latest job shedding can be attributed directly to a decline in orders, both locally and from overseas. He said that although action is being taken to try and alleviate that decline, the downturn is expected to continue for some time to come.
Deputy Chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Peter Evans, wants to dispel the image of gloom and doom that has been flourishing in the area.
We're hoping the Hunter Development Board, the Hunter Valley Research Foundation, NBN, the radio stations and the newspapers and so on, will all get together to look at promoting the positive things that are happening in Newcastle. We've heard a fair bit about the doom and gloom. Now we want to get out and really press those positive things that no one's taking much notice of. We're looking not just to Newcastle, we're looking at a national type advertising for Newcastle.
What plans does the Chamber have?
Well, there are major plans at present include the establishment of a taxation office in Newcastle, and 2 inspectors, or in fact the Assistant Commissioner of Taxation and the Assistant Deputy Commissioner of Taxation are coming here next week, and we're going to have discussions with them. The Hunter Development Board and the City Council are very much involved in this move, and we're hoping to establish an office in this region for 800 employees carrying out the work for the taxation office for the Hunter Valley and the northern part of New South Wales. We're hoping to establish an office for the Electricity Commission in Newcastle. It seems ridiculous that we can have all the power stations and all the heavy industrial work here, and yet some of the commercial sides and the professional side just isn't available.
Says, I'm only to buy it, he says, you recommend if I call later.
That's it, yeah. They've all been happy working there. You know, we're all quite happy to carry on working there. If they'd allow us. So here's lovely.